Arizona Republican Congressman Andy Biggs says President Trump is right about getting tough with Mexico to secure its southern border, and he joins us now. Good to see you, Congressman. I've been kind of surprised at how much he's been applauding Mexico for helping out. I'm just wondering, has the crisis really been getting better since Mexico's been getting tougher?
Well, we haven't seen enough time for that to take place, because the reality is Mexico still is not really giving us the support that we really want. They're not taking the asylum and refugee requesters, the applicants. They're supposed to be holding them in Mexico. They're not doing that. We need them to sign on to the same basic treaty that Canada did, where if they're passing through Mexico, they're going to hold them. So it's too early to tell. I hope that'll happen, but you still have two caravans trying to make their way up through Mexico, and if Mexico doesn't put the kibosh on that, then I'd say that no, it hasn't really worked as well as we had hoped.
So what I'm sensing then is that what the president is doing, he's throwing out an olive branch to the Mexicans, saying, look, I'm willing to applaud you if you do the right thing, but then holding over their head the threat of more terrorists. Lord knows how that will affect USMCA, but he's sort of playing good cop, bad cop himself. Am I right?
Absolutely. I think he's doing the right thing, because he is really hammering him hard and providing the threat that his bully pulpit allows. But he's also giving them a break. He's giving them, here's some daylight, but you got to step it up. And they really do have to step it up, because without Mexico holding their line on their immigration laws and on their southern border, it's just going to continue to be a free-for-all and basic anarchy on our southern border.
Now, meanwhile, while you may be getting help from Mexico, you're not getting much help from the Democrats. And I mentioned this before. It's interesting the pivot that Democrats have taken, because first, for months and months, they were refusing to admit that there was a crisis, even a problem. Beto O'Rourke said there's no problem at the border a couple of weeks ago. Now they have to admit. Now the Democrats from Obama administration have said that there's a problem. Jay Johnson and others, not just a problem, but a real crisis. They had to admit that there's one, but they're blaming it all on Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's insanity, in my opinion. Look, they're the ones that basically have done nothing for years. And to say that there was no problem. But by the way, David, there's still a significant number of my congressional colleagues on the other side of the aisle that deny that there's a problem at all. And for many months, they were saying, well, we don't want President Trump to get a victory. But some that I were talking to this week, they don't have any idea how to solve this problem. But there's so many things that we can be doing, that we should be doing. But our colleagues on the other side are not going to help us out. I can guarantee you that. They're not going to help us.
Well, clearly, border security is one issue, and the president has found a way of getting money to build the wall. He went yesterday to inspect one of the walls that has gone up. But you have these asylum walls, asylum laws, and they cannot be fixed without Democrats' help, right?
For the most part, they can't be fixed without Democrats' help. But we can do some things. We can put some leverage on Mexico. Like I say, they need to hold those folks there. And that's where President Trump needs to continue with the strong arm that he's using. But if we're going to make long-term effects, we really have to have the Democrats, and they don't want to do it.
But this asylum law, I mean, you put one foot on U.S. soil and you're home free. I mean, you have one meeting with the Border Patrol, and then they say come back in 2 months, and they never come back. Right. So, I mean, clearly this is something that Democrats, moderate Democrats, understand. And can't you forge some sort of coalition to change that?
Well, I wish we could. I mean, there's probably 20 seats that I would say are kind of swing seats, where people there are looking now at the border and they're saying, you got to do something. And David, it's even worse. Since the walls are built on our property, on America right away, if somebody gets on the fence, our Border Patrol agent goes over, get off the fence, they say, well, I want asylum. We have to figure out how to get them over, under, through, around, through a gate or something, because now our law requires us to take them in, even though they were on the Mexico side, but they were on the fence, which is on American territory. So I'm hoping that with some of our, I want to say more correct thinking, Democrat friends will join us, but so far they've not put out they haven't crossed the bridge yet. They haven't been willing to cross the bridge.
Now, independent of the Mexicans and Democrats, you have the Central Americans themselves. I think part of the reason why there is such an onrush is precisely because the president is tough on immigration, and they understand that the window for a free ride is closing, whether it's the president putting the wall up, or you guys finally forging a coalition with Democrats to change the asylum laws? And this is the last chance. I mean, word gets around. There's a grapevine in the community of Central America that gets the word out pretty quick that if you don't go now, you may never get in.
That's exactly right. There's a grapevine from the southern border all the way down to the Central American states. And the cartels are using this, David. Right now, the cartels are using the weak asylum laws, so they won't charge as much. But the cartels don't even have to enter necessarily. They're just bringing them right up to the border, saying, now you just step over there and you're going to get asylum. You're going to be released into the interior. We've released over 120,000 people in the last several months in this country, into the interior of this country. And so people know that there's a great opportunity. It's one of the unintended consequences of trying to get tough on the border. But we have to get tough on the border. It's just going to continue to proliferate.
Yeah. Well, we've seen it before, by the way. In the late 80s, we saw it. Early 90s, we put up a bunch of walls in San Diego. I think 3 tiers of walls, and that stopped a lot of it. Hopefully, we'll get it stopped again. Great to see you. Andy Biggs, Congressman from Arizona. Appreciate it. Well, President Trump, of course, inspecting the border wall on Friday. Is he on the right course? Joining me now is National Border Patrol Council President Brandon Judd. Brandon, good to see you again. Thanks for being here. Let's talk about closing the border. You know the border extraordinarily well, having covered it for quite a while. Would it be possible to somehow keep commerce open while closing the border off for immigration?
It's going to be difficult to be able to do that. I mean, you're already seeing the effects, but you're also seeing the positive effects that these diverting of 750 customs officers to Border Patrol operations. You're seeing the effects that that's having on Border Patrol operations. Illegal immigration is already going down. Mexico is doing more of their part to control the illegal immigration. And so there's always a cause and effect. So you have to ask, is trade more important or is border security more important? Because both agencies, both the Border Patrol and Customs, are understaffed. I mean, when I put on a uniform and I go out and I patrol the border, I have very few agents that are next to me, and it's very difficult to patrol that border because of how understaffed we are.
Brandon, I was kind of surprised at how positive the president was speaking about Mexico. We haven't had a wonderful history with Mexico in terms of dealing with immigration issues. What do you think turned them around? Was it the tough talk of the president?
It was. When you look at the rhetoric, when you start talking about economic sanctions, that's going to directly impact the Mexican economy. And so they're going to have to make a choice. Do you help the United States with the issues that are directly facing them, or do you face the possible economic sanctions? Mexico did the right thing. They are, in fact, enforcing their immigration laws on their southern border, which then has a direct impact on border security on our southern border.
You know, there's been another pivot here, and that's within the United States. The Democrat Party, at first, of course, they said there was no problem, there was no crisis. As recently as 2 weeks ago, Beto O'Rourke was at the border saying, literally, there is no problem here. Now they can't deny that there is a crisis because you have people like Jay Johnson, who was DHS Secretary under President Obama, and other Democrats coming out saying, absolutely, there is a crisis at the border. What do you think of their pivot?
So they had to make this pivot. They've got 2 major problems on their hands right now going into 2020. The economy is doing extremely well, and immigration is extremely poor. So they have to acknowledge that, otherwise they're going to get hit at the polls in 2020. When you look at this acknowledgement, you got to understand, I've been a Border Patrol agent for 21 years. I was in the middle of the last crisis that we had, which was in the mid-2000s, early to mid-2000s. This crisis that we're facing right now is much worse than that original crisis in the mid-2000s. So they're having to acknowledge this, otherwise they're going to get hurt at the polls.
But while they're acknowledging it, they're putting the blame for it on President Trump. And since they had to make that pivot, well, of course, they realized they could try to make political hay of it. But I'm just wondering, because the cause of the crisis, clearly President Trump says it's these laws that have been happening. There's no barrier at the border, but there are also these laws like the asylum laws. Once you get your feet on the ground in U.S. soil, you got a free ride. But there's no idea from the Democrats in terms of how to solve this. And if they are presented with a law to change asylum laws, clearly it'll be voted down in the House, right?
No, absolutely, and that's the issue. Is they're acknowledging the crisis, but they're trying to say that they want to handle the crisis by opening the borders up. The American public has said over and over and over again that they want border security, and if you look at the policies and the implementations that the Trump administration is currently doing, the migrant protection protocols or Remain in Mexico, the potential that Border Patrol agents will be trained as asylum officers to kick off that process much quicker in order to be able to deport people faster. You look at this, the Trump administration is coming up with solutions, and frankly, they're saying, Congress, if you're not going to be a help, I'm going to cut you out, get out of the way. Yeah. I'm going to do what I need to do.
Well, it's fine on the border security. We can get money through the emergency measure, but when it comes to asylum laws, you need the help of Democrats to get it passed. And I assume, we only have 10 seconds, but I assume as a Border Patrol agent, you think those asylum laws need to be changed quickly.
Oh, they have to be changed. If we don't change those laws, we're going to continue to have problems.
Brandon Judd, great to see you, sir. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.